let's see if I start to see people are showing up.
Looks like we're live.
Yeah, we're relatively speaking, we're live. We'll give everybody a few minutes to file in.
Sure.
Seats, you know, move to the end of the aisle.
How is in the Bay Area, are you seeing much smoke, or how is it there?
It's smoky. I mean, it's not, today is fine, but there was a day when it was planned on being like 100 and something degrees, like around 100 degrees, and it didn't get to like 70 because there was no sunlight. I mean, even in the office, which is, I've got like windows right here, lights had to be on, right, in order to see what you were doing. It was, and there was like an orange, strange orange look. We would get up and there would be ash on everybody's cars, all you know, in the morning from the, yeah.
Wow.
And I actually have a buyer interested in buying in the area, and she was coming around that time, and she didn't want to come because she was afraid that she'd be caught in the fires and, you know, burned up and all that. All right, I think we have a good group of people already. The ones that are prompt have already arrived. If you guys can, so let me just go ahead and get started. I assume everybody can hear me. And there's a chat box, which you can find by clicking on the chat box. And in the chat box, you could, I believe there's a place that you could raise your hand or whatever. If you have a question, we'll have a Q&A session at the end. And what I want to do is I want to introduce our speaker today, Don Yoakum, who has agreed to come and talk about success in real estate. And one of the things that I found fascinating in looking at Don's you know, resume or professional history is that he was a windsurfing professional at the Olympics and a World Cup title, 3-time national champion. I was not going to say the year, Don, because I just thought that would be a polite thing to leave out of the story. But, you know, I'm curious, did the experience of windsurfing competitively help you for getting into real estate, for the rough waters, the shifting winds, and everything that's in the business? Was
100%.
100%.
The thing about professional sports, or frankly, taking anything to a world-class level, is that it requires a certain set of discipline. And it is that discipline to be able to persist in light of setbacks that really distinguishes one successful person from one not. And what I learned through my windsurfing career was, first of all, to model the success of others. One of the things that I did when I was 16 years old was move to the Bay Area from Sacramento so that I could train with the best people in Northern California, which I did. I got a job in Berkeley teaching lessons, and it was wonderful. And then that winter, my dad, crazy guy, actually let me move to Florida to finish high school, because that's where the top people in the country were training during the winter. And due to that, I was able to then, 2 years after that, become a member of the United States Olympic team. And again, you know, it wasn't anything fancy. I just copied what other successful people were doing, and I just kept showing up every day. And turned out I became one of those top people. And I've applied that same discipline in the real estate business as well. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, well, it jumped out at me. And I see that shortly after that, 1990, I guess I am going to say the year, is when you started in real estate, closed 51 transactions, your first full year in real estate. So you're taking it slow, I could see. So, well, that's awesome. And let's see, you've been in, I see a manager in the title business, but in 2000, you were the sales manager and an owner of the Keller Williams Realties. And in fact, it became the largest KW franchisee in the nation. And one of the things that we discovered in talking, because as many of you know, I also was at Keller Williams at one point, is that Don actually was the owner at one point and started the office in Cupertino, where I used to be the coach, as well as the one in Palo Alto, I believe. Is that true in the Bay Area? You were the founder of those two? Or?
Yep, that's right. Such a small world.
It's a small world, but I wouldn't want to have to paint it, as some philosopher once said. And you became one of the, so you know how to build, be successful, build businesses. And from 2011 until now, you're a coach and a consultant and at EXP. And you're going to share with us today some of the secrets of being successful in real estate. It's really a secret. And I've included a link for those of you in the chat to a copy of the slides, but you're going to receive an email with the slides as well. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Don.
Well, thank you. And so this talk is near and dear to my heart, because what I have found is that people will get into real estate with whatever background that they have, and they will go through that process of studying for their test. And for those of you that have completed that, and I believe the majority of you have, you learned how basically not to get sued. But you learned very little or anything about how to really make money in real estate. And, you know, I understand why the state does it in that way. They want to protect the consumer and so forth. But fact of the matter is, we all got in this business because we wanted to make a successful career of it and actually make money. And so this talk, while designed for a newer agent, I'm going to reveal some secrets in it that even some of the highest producing agents do not utilize. And so I'm sure that you will hear things that will enable you to earn more money. And so without further ado, I will launch into it. First of all, one of the things that we want to do is we want to launch your business. And one of the things about life is momentum, and momentum is such a powerful force. It can either be very positive or very negative, and but it is powerful. And so you want to create momentum in your launch, or if you've been in the business for many years, the relaunch of your career. And so we'll talk about how to make that possible. The next thing is, and NAR would tell you that the #1 reason why a realtor is selected by a consumer, according to their extensive surveys, is that they gain the trust of the consumer. The #2 reason is local market knowledge. Now, I've had over 5,000 agents in my brokerages, so I've seen a lot of different approaches to becoming the expert in a particular niche. And frankly, you can be the expert in any great number of things. I have an agent in the Portland market that does specializes in floating homes. I've had agents that do horse property, Gulf property, oceanfront property, riverfront property, investment property. When I got into the business such a long time ago, I started off as a condominium specialist, actually, because I went into a market. My dad had agreed to mentor me, and so I relocated to Long Beach, and I was very unfamiliar with the marketplace. And to be honest, I was a little intimidated. I was quite young at the time, I think 23 or 24 years old. And so what I decided to do was just go out and learn 5 condominium developments. And in each one of those buildings, there was usually 3, possibly 4 different models. And so I was very quickly able to get familiar with the floor plans of every unit in all the buildings with which I specialized. And I then went, back in those days, we used to have those publications, Harmon Homes, Michael would probably remember that. And I took out a full-page ad, and I called myself the condominium king. Now, mind you, I did not have a single condominium listing at that point, okay? But what happened was, is I went and I learned my market, and I actually knew those 5 buildings as well or better than anyone. So not only did I preview those floor plans, but I looked at the comps, I looked at every available property. I really did know my market, so I was a local expert. And I was the only one in the Harmon Homes magazine advertising exclusively condos. And I even got other agents, you know, because frankly, the condominiums were the lower end of the market. It was 1989. It was hot. Really, the market was really cooking at that time. And so most of the agents didn't want to bother with such a low end sale. And so they would actually refer me clients, condominiums, which was great for me. I still, you know, being a young man, I still perceive that to be a pretty good payday. And so that enabled me to be a local expert. Now today, and what I did when I then relocated to Sacramento, which is my hometown, is I became a geographic expert. So my zip code was 95815, and I learned that market. And one of the things when I take on an apprentice and I'm trying to get them to learn their marketplace, I tell them, if you'll follow this plan, 90 days from now, you're going to know your market better than any agent. I don't care if that agent's been in the business 10, 20, 30 years. Now, when I say your market, I'm talking about your zip code, okay? And so what I ask them to do is go into that zip code, and I want you to pull up every closed sale, okay? Now, you can't go inside because they're closed and they have a new owner, but you can drive the property. Do not just look at the property on the computer, because as you can imagine, just like Facebook, we've got people taking pictures of themselves, putting them up that were from 20 years ago. You want to actually see the property, okay? And so I have them drive every comp. Let's say if I were coaching you today, I'd say drive every comp from January 1 till now, or the last, not more than the last 100. And then also drive the pendings, which again, those are in escrow, so you're not going to be able to get inside those either. Then what I want you to do is I want you to put yourself on a IDX feed so that every property that comes on the market in that zip code comes into your email as though you're a buyer for that. And so you just preview them. And when I have somebody set up their time blocking, I have them set up 4 hours per week, 2-hour segments that they do to preview property. And if you will do that, what I just described, 4 hours a week for 90 days, close, pending, and then go inside and preview the available, you will be the local expert in that particular zip code. Again, that's not the only niche that you can choose. It's just a very easy, convenient one. I gave you examples of many that you could use. Some others, I have a good friend that called himself the duplex king. And he now owns over 100 duplexes, by the way, so that turned out pretty well for him. You could have people that do investment property. You can also cater to a particular niche. I was speaking to an agent last night that serves military families, and she's got all kinds of connections in that regard. So the point is that I want you to be the best at something, okay? That's going to give you tremendous confidence, credibility, and just a great recurring income. And then also we're going to discuss what it would look like to set up an exit strategy. Now, you're just getting into the business, so you're thinking, well, why are you always already planning my retirement? One of the things to know, by the way, is that retirement parties in real estate are a pretty rare occasion. I'm trying to think if I have attended any. And I've been in the business, as we now know, my first full year was 1990. So it is uncommon for a realtor to be able to retire with an income that is commensurate with what they were earning in real estate. And so what we want for you is something better than that. Anybody that goes into this with great intention could set up a retirement in 5 years, but certainly within 10. if they're very purposeful about it. And I'm going to give you some ideas on that. So your initial launch or relaunch, as the case may be, is you've got to come up with a minimum of 120 people, name, phone, email, occupation, owner status, and put them into a database. I'm suggesting just do something in Excel initially, because that's a database that is really easy to then import into any variety of CRMs, which is an acronym for Contact Relationship Manager. Okay, if you can't come up with 120 people, then you might want to consider that you're not in the right line of work. Okay, the average consumer statistically knows about 150 people. Okay, now these don't have to be best friends. In fact, I don't think most people have more than 5 really good friends, but these would be just be people that you know, like, and trust. Maybe if you were to encounter them in a Starbucks or something, you'd say hi, you'd be comfortable having a brief conversation with them and exchanging pleasantries. Now, you might say, well, geez, you know, I just got out of college, you know, I don't know that many people, and people that I do know don't necessarily own homes. So then what you're going to have to do to get to your 120 is you're going to have to go through friends and relatives. And these might be people that the primary relationship is with your parents or with your uncle, but they're people that you have met through them. And so there is some connection. And I'm going to give you some strategies for communicating with them, but I want you to write down this phrase, which is, I'm going to be a real estate resource. Okay. Now, the irony for most people that enter into real estate is that when they get in, they avoid their personal sphere of influence. Okay. And what happens is they avoid it because in their minds, what they're saying to themselves oftentimes is, well, I don't want to call them because they know I'm brand new. Okay. A stranger doesn't necessarily. Okay. Well, here's the thing. If I am going to have open heart surgery, okay, and Michael has just become a doctor, I am not going to be too keen on him performing open heart surgery on me, okay? That being said, I don't mind if he checks my blood pressure, checks my pulse, maybe draws a little bit of blood, okay? In other words, when I ask you to build your list, and then I'm going to encourage you to reach out to your folks as a real estate resource, it is to introduce in their mind that you can be the go-to person for anything real estate related. A little known fact, and this is worth writing down also, is that 25% of the time someone is painting their home, they are preparing it for sale. Okay, I was coaching an agent in Colorado a few years ago. We were having a conversation in June. Year to date, that agent had gotten 3 listings from his painter. Okay, and that's because he had trained his painter to ask a very simple question, which is, may I ask what has prompted you to paint your home? And that would bubble up this referral opportunity. By the way, I have somebody on my team right now, believe this, he has gotten 4 referrals from a window washer. Okay, and I call these trigger events. Painting and window washing are 2 trigger events for listing a home. But what I want you to think about is, what does somebody do right before they list a home? They paint it, they wash the windows, they landscape it, they trim the trees, they replace the flooring, they remodel it, okay, they fix the roof, etc. Those are the people that you want to start to network with. And when you call your database as a real estate resource, you don't call them up and say, hey, Michael, it's Don. How's it going? I don't know if you knew, but I'm a realtor and I'd love to sell you a home, right? You call up and you simply say, hi, how are you? How are you liking your place? And is there anything that you need? like a painter, plumber, roofer, landscaper. And what that does then is it starts to create this stream of introductions that you can make now to your consumers. So when you do that, there's two things that are happening. One of them is you're adding value to your sphere, and you're making a deposit into the vendor relationship from which you're going to be asking them to ask the magic question, which is what has prompted you to paint, remodel, landscape your home, right? And so then hopefully they're going to reciprocate. Now, some little tips on getting up to that 120 could be go through your text messages. Those are usually the most active relationships. Go through your Facebook friends, your LinkedIn contacts, your Twitter, Instagram followers and such. Like I said, if you have to, go through your family, your friends. I don't care what you have to do, just make it happen, okay? And I'm going to talk about ultimately where you want to go, but you want to start with 120. You want to choose your zip. I talked about a very intentional process of going out and learning your local market. And you want to assemble a team. I think it's really important when you get in. Like I had the really great fortune of having my father mentor me, very successful agent. And it's funny because I came into the business with some sales knowledge. And so I had some persuasion skills. And I'll tell you, my greatest fear was I was actually going to get in front of a client. They would want to buy the home, and I wouldn't know how to fill out the contract. So, you know, what I did when I first got in is it was, and admittedly back in the day, that was when we had the carbon copies, but we would make photocopies, and I would write up a contract, submit it to my dad. He'd counter it. We'd go bickering back and forth, and it was kind of fun. But the point was I got a lot of practice writing contracts with all kinds of different scenarios. Another important piece of your team is your lender. That's probably the most integral one. They're also important because they might be willing to engage with you in co-op marketing to actually go attract more customers. They also can be a very valuable part of the lead conversion process. And then you want to also align yourself with a title representative, title rep, because they can get you access to tools where you can get public record information. They can also be a great source of education and a valuable connector as well. So becoming a local expert, I mentioned the minimum to start is 120. That's personal sphere. And then it's 12 for professional sphere. Okay, so and the way that I usually break that up is 7 on the vendor side. I gave you on the vendor side, the ones that I want you to focus on are what does somebody do right before they list their home for sale. Remember, that is painting, landscaping, tree trimming, replacing the flooring, etc. Might not replace the flooring, they might just clean the carpets. So that would be another good one, right? On the asset-based professional side, you might want to write these down. It's CPA, financial advisor, attorney. Now, do you know that I had an agent that in 1 year, mind you, this was a tough year. It was during the Great Recession. He had aligned himself with a bankruptcy attorney and got 13 deals in 1 year, okay? Incidentally, in your professional network, you probably know this from your studies, but you cannot pay a referral to an unlicensed person. That's not true of attorneys. You actually can pay a referral to an attorney, and he did. And that was one of the things that added to his significant referral base. So don't overlook that. I've had other agents get half a dozen deals from CPAs. Do you know the average CPA, by the way, has 500 clients? If people move every 10 years, that means a CPA has a client listing their home for sale statistically, every single week, right? 500 divided by 10 is 50, okay? And I can assure you that if people own a home, the majority of the time, they're not going to become homeless after that. So there's going to be a list and a buy, okay, in a lot of occasions. But here is the secret with CPAs. This is the question that you want to train the asset-based professionals to ask. It's a little bit different from the vendors. And the question a CPA is to ask is, do you plan to buy or sell a home in the coming tax year. Now, the irony is a CPA, every CPA that I've ever met will ask you 100% of the time, or it'll be on a checklist, if you bought or sold a home last year, right? Because they want to file your taxes correctly. The problem is they can't introduce you, and by the way, that's another thing. I want you to train your people to introduce you, not refer you, because a referral is an implied endorsement, and some people will be apprehensive about making an implied endorsement. So write down on your notes there, introduce instead of refer. But you've got to train your CPA to ask this question, because number one, if they were actually interested in doing anything to help their client mitigate their taxes, wouldn't they need to ask the question ahead of time? Some of you may be aware that there are ways to defer taxes in sales. There's a 1031 exchange, or there is understanding the 1034 rule around personal residences, and a CPA can be very valuable in that regard. Now, long term, the goal that I want you to get to is 300 personal, 25 professional. The reason why 300 is because, again, if people move every 10 years and you've got 300, that's 30. You're not going to get 100% of those, by the way, for some reason, even if you're staying in contact with them, which most realtors don't. And so what I'm striving for here is I want you to get at least half. So 300 will get you 15 listings. Half of those people buy again. There's about 22 sales. And then if you get some from the professionals, you should be getting at least a dozen sales from professional referrals. Now you're what I consider to be an icon. You're doing about 3 sales a month. I love hyper local digital marketing. And when I got into business, we had a door knock. We had to, which is still not a bad thing to do, by the way, in certain neighborhoods. And we had to do snail mail, which is expensive and took forever in order to get a decent return. Today, man, you can do amazing things. You literally can go by IP address and get right into the news feed of people in a geographic area. It's pretty amazing. And then on social media, just don't be a secret agent. Also, don't be obsessive about broadcasting that you're an agent. Try to find a reasonable balance. Yeah, I think a reasonable balance, by the way, is maybe family 1/3, travel or whatever your personal interests are about 1/3, and then your business about 1/3. People will tolerate that and not unfriend you, and yet you're still letting them know that you're in the business and you're active and successful. If you're going to be a local expert and you want to dominate your market, you're going to have to go after FSBOs, expireds, and for rents. FSBOs and expireds, now, by the way, I was extremely successful on expireds. In my time, I was not so successful on FSBOs. I found them to be not very respectful of agents as a rule, didn't value me, and that hurt my feelings, and, which was a poor choice on my part, because that's a great source of business. And today, we know of a tremendous FSBO system. So if I were doing sales today, I would certainly be doing FSBOs. And for rents are an often overlooked thing. The for rents are a source of business, I would say especially now, actually, and especially in the Bay Area, it would be an incredible thing, because we've had this incredible run of appreciation. And if somebody has a home for rent, one of a few things have happened. If it's vacant, there's a reasonable probability that, well, first of all, they have no income from the rental property, and they could have a very material amount of equity. Second is they probably, or they may have had a bad tenant experience, right? They had to evict the tenant, or the tenant finally moved it out, and then they had to put some money into the property to get it rent ready. And so I have my agents call for rents and simply ask, I see you have a home for rent in Danville, and I was just curious, if you don't find a tenant that you're absolutely happy with, would you be open to selling your home? And occasionally people say yes. And so that can be another good source. It's a great, you guys have still got such a tight market. That's a great source to uncover some listings. And then open houses. That's been an interesting thing this year because of COVID, but I want to tell you, open houses are still an amazing way of generating business. And there are people that are also developing virtual open house solutions where you can send people to a squeeze page, capture their name, phone, and email. We incorporate our open houses with a lender relationship where they sponsor like a $200 drawing once a month, like at a Ruth Chris or something. And that way people are enthusiastic about providing their name, phone, and email because they want to win that. And so don't write that off. Open houses are amazing and can be marketed to in a variety of other ways through digital marketing, into news feeds. You can circle dial, you can door knock. There's all kinds of great things you can do around that. All right, so exit strategy. First thing is to make a plan about your first year. And when Michael was talking about me closing 51 deals, I want you to understand that was not in my first 12 months. I started the business in about April, and my first full year of business was actually 1990, and that's the year I did the 51. I really encourage you not to make a goal to try to match that. That was a lot of brain damage and extremely long hours. And I had a very hot market for a good part of that year. It actually did tail off in the second half. But in the first year, if you can just get yourself up to where you're knocking out a sale a month and doing that by the third or fourth month in the business, that's not bad at all. And it's just giving you time to grow into your systems and processes, because it is, and I'll be honest, you know, even though I did this tremendous volume in my first year, my service could have been better. What I have found is that the people that go above about 3 or 4 sales per month, they begin to shift from this relationship-based business approach to more of a transactional approach. And people don't actually like being treated like a number. And if you do that, you're going to find that they are going to end up treating you like a commodity as well. And that doesn't have a happy ending. They're going to be asking for all kinds of compromises in terms of your fee. They're going to be having you compete with other resources, and that's not what you want. We're in a relationship business, and that is going to be your best defense against any technology that will infiltrate our industry in coming years. So set reasonable goals. I usually tell people one sale a month in your first year, and if you can get into that by your third or fourth month, that's great. So, you know, that's probably 9 or 10 in your first year, first 12 months. And then by year 3, if you can get up to where you're doing about 30 sales a year, that's fantastic. That's what we consider an icon in my business model. And that awards you certain things like stock in the company, which is part of our exit strategy, is we want to create wealth. And then by 5 years, you know, you're topping out. You should have, at this point, have your 300 people in your database that know, like, and trust you, consider you their real estate resource. And that's, you know, a time period where you'll have your 25 referral partners as well. Incidentally, on those referral partners, it's not enough to just say, hey, let's refer each other, okay? If you're going to really maintain a high performance network in a local community, you're going to want to meet once a month, maybe by Zoom. You want to conjugate into some local event that you promote as a group. And there's some strategies around promoting into a local event that is doing something good for the community. I strongly recommend that approach as to trying to pull off a client appreciation event, much easier and less expensive and a lot less stress on your part. And then 10 years is for sure by that time. I told you in the beginning of our conversation here that you know, you could exit within 5. For sure, you should be able to do it in 10. And here's the thing, whether or not you're going to retire from the business in 10 years, I want to encourage you to make a plan so that you can. That doesn't mean you have to. Heck, I've been in the business for over 30 now, okay? But I can retire. Well, I actually don't sell anymore. So yeah, I guess you could say I have retired from real estate sales. But my point is that just make it so you have the option. A really important thing from day one, set yourself up a self-directed retirement account and put 15% of your income into it, because it's going to reduce your taxable income. Statistically, 6 out of 10 realtors get into tax trouble. Don't be one of those people. And so if you set up a self-directed account, that will reduce your taxes that you have to pay, and it starts to build a nest egg. And that self-directed retirement account also would enable you to invest in notes secured by deeds of trust, which could become a form of passive income for you and part of your exit strategy. And then I recommend strongly building a business and passive income. And so, I think Michael mentioned that, I had built several brokerages. I think I'm, in fact, the only person in Keller Williams history that has successfully built 10 of theirs from the ground up. But what I've chosen now, the EXP platform, because it affords me essentially the same or maybe even a greater opportunity than I had at Keller Williams. I don't have any broker liability or capital risk. And so by utilizing their platform, I'm able to build passive income, in my case now, well in excess of 6 figures on an annualized basis. And that enables me to not have to sell. And it's a nice position to be in. And so, talk to Michael if you're interested in learning more about that. But one way or another, whether it is investing through your self-directed retirement account into notes, whether it is buying property, which I also strongly recommend, not so much today because we're at the top of the cycle, but in a few years after we've had a nice correction, I'm sure we'll have another really excellent time for purchasing, and you should do everything you can to put yourself in position to do that, because the great thing about buying at the bottom of the market is not only is the cash flow pretty good, but you can ride, you are able to, with real estate, you're able to utilize leverage, and then you can really magnify your return, and it can be pretty fantastic. So, but bottom line is you want to create enough passive income to pay all of your monthly expenses, fixed and variable, so that you can become financially free. And while you may not choose to retire for 10 years, I want to strongly encourage you to try to make a plan. And if you need any assistance on that, talk to Michael or myself, but make a plan so that you're financially free within 5 years, okay? And then just be intentional about doing that. Now, I've talked a lot about going to your sphere and professional networking. One of the things that I want to have you ask yourself, and Michael, I'll wrap up here in a moment, is I want to make sure that you are referable. And so what does that mean? Do you show up on time? Do you do what you say? Do you finish what you start? Do you say please and thank you? And I'm suggesting in a personalized handwritten note. And are you the best at something? I spent a lot of time talking about being a local expert, okay? This one slide will determine your destiny in terms of your ability to get referrals from your market. Make sure that you don't, that you treat those with the respect they deserve. Now, Michael is creating a link for you guys to have this Apprentice launch checklist. This outlines them here. By the way, time blocking, my coaching clients, I have them time block 20 hours a week, and half of that, 10 hours, is prospecting. And then we have a 90-day checklist, which we can get to as well. In regards to calling as a sphere of influence, I can get Michael this video. I did a 6-minute interview on the articulation of 4 different ways that you can call your sphere of influence, in every case coming from a place of contribution, or you can email me at don@proinsight, and I'll send it to you. But I'll make sure that Michael has it. And so finally, the action items are align yourself with a mentor. A lot of you have already got your license, so but you want to make sure that you can be productive, and then get a hold of that launch checklist and score yourself. It actually has a way of doing that. And that is it. So Michael, do you want to open it up for a little Q&A?
Yes, you can. There is a Q&A function. There's also a chat function. So if any of you have a Q, we'll see if we can find an A that will, answer your Q.
While we're waiting for some questions, and I really appreciate folks either asking a question or making a comment. Michael, what I'd like to do is maybe practice this script, because it just drives me crazy when people don't call their sphere of influence when they get into the business. So can I role play with you? And sure. And I want you to act as though you are in my sphere of influence. We just haven't seen each other in a while.
Okay.
Okay, so ring, ring, ring.
Hello.
Hello, is this Michael?
Yes, it is.
Hey, Michael, this is Don Yoakum. How are you?
Really good. How are you doing? Been a long time.
Yeah, no kidding. I think, gosh, when was the last time we saw each other? I think it's over a year for sure. But how have you been?
I've been great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. And, when I last spoke with you, I was in the insurance business. You may remember that. And I have shifted my career focus to real estate. And one of the things that I am doing is just reaching out to the people that I know and like, yourself included, and just offering myself as a real estate resource. So I know you own your own home, and I'm just curious, is there anything around the house that needs any attention? Do you need a painter, plumber, roofer, or landscaper?
All of the above.
Fair enough. Well,
no, we're always talking about remodeling. We're always talking about remodeling,
yeah.
Changing stuff and fixing stuff. I don't know, kind of overwhelming. Don't know who to trust, that sort of thing.
I know. Well, those type of vendors, some are excellent, but it is hard to find reliable ones. And that's one of the reasons why I call my folks, because I feel like, you only sell a home every 7 to 10 years, but it seems like if you own a home, there's always something that needs attention. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
So if you were to just pick one thing that has really been bugging you that you would like to get resolved, what would you say that would be?
Backyard landscaping.
Okay. And is that do you have a pretty good sized backyard? I've not been in your backyard.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah. It's, sod or not the sod or what to do. Not really too sure yet.
Okay. Yeah. So I certainly can introduce you to a couple landscapers. And how soon do you have in mind to want to do that? Do you want to do that before the winter season kicks in?
That would be, yes, before it starts to become difficult, yes.
Okay. And do you have in mind to have this be a pretty extensive job? I know you mentioned sod or not to sod. Do you want to have any special features? Do you want to do a pool, a jacuzzi, waterfall, or you want to keep it pretty simple? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I think keeping it pretty simple. No pool, no jacuzzi.
Okay.
The waterfall sounds nice.
Yeah, it can be a really, these days things can be a little stressful, and having running water actually could be quite soothing. And I do know of a landscape company that does a magnificent job with water features. So we'll tell you what, it's a pleasure to reconnect with you. How about I do a little bit of legwork to find a landscaper that is actually available right now, because a lot of them are quite busy. And then once I do, I'll do a little text intro for you.
All right. Well, that sounds great.
All right. Well, you take care.
Right.
Okay. So, in this case, I haven't talked to Michael in over a year. And how did that conversation feel to you, by the way?
Fine. Didn't feel threatening or anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what I want. But here's what I really wanted, Michael, is I want you to feel like I called and I'm making a deposit in our relationship. In other words, and I know you know Brian Buffini, and I love Brian Buffini, by the way. The guy is amazing speaker and really, really funny. But it has always bugged me how our industry has been taught, well, call and, use the Ford acronym, talk about their family, occupation, recreation, dreams. And then, oh, by the way, do you know somebody that wants to buy or sell? Well, if I call you up, Michael, and I make a little bit of chit chat and I haven't spoken to you a year and I ask you for a referral, have I made a deposit or a withdrawal in our relationship?
Withdrawal, yeah.
Exactly. Okay. And if I have not been building our relationship, do I actually have an account balance in our relationship?
No, I was going to say last time we met, I bought you lunch, something like that.
Exactly. Okay. So I'm already overdrafted,
Right.
So my point is, come from a place of contribution. Okay. And being a real estate resource is a way to do it. I actually, in that video, which I'll get Michael, is 6 minutes, I talk about 4 different ways. One is a real estate resource. One is an investment conversation. One is, by the way, everybody has a dream home. So ask them if they would describe their dream home to you. That's number 3, and that one's kind of fun. And then the 4th one is to talk about an upcoming event that you're promoting. And we did get a question about, would you recommend a certain brokerage? And of course, I'm biased, but of course I would recommend eXp Realty, and you can speak with Michael about that. I don't think that there's really anybody that can compare at the moment. I have had the opportunity, when I started in a really small little boutique. That was nice, mostly because my dad was mentoring me there. Without that, I don't know, they didn't have many other resources. I went to RE/MAX after that. That was really actually a good experience as well. I had very high production there, but really the truth was I just got a lot of autonomy. They didn't get in my way, and but very little support. When I went to Keller Williams, Michael would tell you it's a fine company. They have good training. I don't know that, I think unfortunately the really great training is now pretty expensive, but it's a good company, but really can't compare to what eXp offers in terms of cost to do business, the ability to be treated like an owner, get stock, be able to have the opportunity eventually to build your own organization and get revenue share. And maybe the secret sauce of that model is that you have support and collaboration. And it's a unique economic model in that regard. And the level of support that I have enjoyed and that I give others is unlike anything I've seen in any brokerage. So I hope that answers your question.
And Don, I think Wyatt may have a question, so I'm going to allow Wyatt to talk. I assume you still want to talk.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. You have to unmute yourself, Wyatt, if you wish to.
Oh, I didn't have any questions. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. Hey, you learned how to unmute yourself, so that was that took me.
So Wyatt, tell me about your business. Are you practicing now?
No, I'm just, on this webinar learning and taking in all the information. I come from the home improvement, solar sales, and doing life insurance sales previously. So I'm just taking a gander into something different.
Okay, so let me speak to that because you've hit on a couple hot buttons for me. When you're selling solar, tell me if this isn't true. One of the objections for them not wanting to do a lease and take on solar is because they're going to move.
It comes up a lot.
Okay, so who do you think I'm going to want you to build networking relationships with?
Oh, all the people I worked with in solar.
Bingo. Okay, those guys are calling something like 100 people a day. People move every 10 years. Okay, definitely. That means 1 out of 10 people that you're talking to are moving this year. Okay, and that objection comes up. I don't know how often it came up for you, but when I've talked to other solar people, it comes up at least once a week. So what you want to do is you want to become a great referral source for a solar guy or gal, and you want them to say, Well, gosh, if well, that makes sense to me. That's understandable. If you are going to make a move, first of all, where are you going, right? So have them ask that question, and that will help you in your dialogue. And then second, you have them say, you know, I've got a gentleman, a professional colleague, that will come to your home and take a look and share with you how you can optimize your home for sale. Okay, there are a lot of things that people can do that cost very little money that can help enhance their value. And so he does that. Now, granted, he's a realtor, so he'd love to list your home, but he will come out and do that, and he'll introduce you to the professionals necessary to actually get that work done at no cost or obligation. Would you like me to make an introduction for you? Okay, right. That's the script. If you teach a half a dozen of your solar buddies to do that, dude, you're going to get a half a dozen sales a year just from that.
Wow.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, well, in your area, your average gross commission is going to be somewhere between 15 and 20 grand. So that strategy right there, which tailors perfectly into your background, is worth 100 grand a year.
Yeah.
I hate to, correct you, Don, but in our market, a median priced home last month for single family was $1.4 million. Right.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, but it's even more valuable.
You're not in Sacramento anymore.
I know.
It's crazy.
You're the rich kid.
It's more like, an $800,000 house on the 2.5% side is 20 grand. $1 million is 25. You get the idea. 1.4, 2.4. 6 of those is not a bad way to get started.
Exactly. Well, I think Wyatt gets the idea anyway.
Yeah.
And so.
And then we have another question from Seth, I believe.
Fire away.
If I'm new to the industry, it seems unreasonable to be successful in the sales aspect and the retirement plan at the same time. Is this the case? Shouldn't I just focus on one at a time? After all, I want to be sure to be successful in my first 12 months. How is the mentoring aspect in a virtual setting? I have been told I need face-to-face in order to be successful.
Okay, well, there's actually a couple questions there. The first one was, I want to be successful right away. I'm a new agent. Should I be worried about saving money? And here's the thing. Great book for you to read is Richest Man in Babylon by George Clausen, okay? And in that book, they say, the first thing you want to do is save and then invest, or actually save and then pay off bad debt if you have it. And then once you've done that, invest. And that is something that you want to start from day one. The amount of money, especially in your guys' area, that is possible to make is extraordinary. And I would say the saddest thing that I have seen with over 90% of the agents that I meet is that one way or another, and Michael, you correct me if I'm wrong, but they find a way to spend all that enormous amount of money one way or another. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you've got to start that from day one. And now the second part of that question was about mentoring and in-person versus virtual. Now, today, for example, you guys are in the Bay Area. I'm actually in this little town, Hood River, Oregon, okay? Now, I'm hoping that you got value from some part of my communication today. Maybe an idea like I gave Wyatt that will get him a half a dozen deals a year, or some script or dialogue that will make a difference for you. So clearly it is not necessary for us to be face-to-face in order for, well, actually, theoretically, you probably are looking at my face right now. I'm sorry. I wish I was better. But the point is that in our industry, the coaches all coach virtually. Even before the whole COVID thing happened, that was how 90% of the coaching was occurring. So what what I did, like when I told you the story about windsurfing, I had to move to the Bay Area and then I moved to Florida because I was on the water and I needed to train next to those people. But that is not the case in the real estate industry. We can learn best practices from agents anywhere in the country, in some cases the world. And the things that are available either through coming to a training like you've done today or listening to a YouTube video or whatever, it's just endless opportunities for growth. And so, no, you do not need to be in person. That being said, there is nothing that replaces personal contact, in my opinion. So if you do have the opportunity, if you happen to be coming to Hood River, Oregon, please look me up. I'd be happy to take you for a cup of coffee because that's a different level of relationship and intimacy that you would get, but it's not necessary for your success. All right, well.
We must have given them lasting satisfaction. They're not
perfect. Well,
not asking for any more. Right.
Great. Well, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share. I hope that you and the others found it to be valuable. And if somebody takes just one or two of these ideas and makes it happen, I will feel as though I've had a valuable day.
Sure. Well, thank you very much, Don. We all appreciate it. It was great information, and hopefully we can get you back again.
My pleasure. Anytime.
All right.
Have
Bye,
a good day.
everybody. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to get a copy of the slides that were used in this presentation, including the Apprentice checklist, just leave me a comment below, ask for it. I'll be happy to send it to you, share it with you with a link. If you'd like to see more of these videos, we have a series coming up. Subscribe to the channel, like the video if you like the video, and if you click on that bell, that notification button, that means that you're going to be notified when we have new videos, new content. You won't want to miss